Hey there, sleepyheads. Welcome back to the channel. Before we drift into tonight's tale of the Forgotten Storyteller, I'd love to know where in the world are you watching from tonight? And what time is it for you right now? Drop it in the comments below. It's always magical seeing how far and wide this sleepy little community reaches. All right, lights low, blankets up, let's begin. Tonight we'll wander through the quiet echoes of Ooh, searching for something that's always been there, hiding behind every adventure, every song, and every dream. It's not a character you can see or a creature you can fight. It's not even a kingdom or place. It's something softer, quieter, the storyteller. The one who remembers when no one else can. The one who keeps the world of adventure time alive long after the last flame of its sun fades. You can feel its presence if you listen carefully, in the way the wind moves through the grass of the grassland, humming the tune of old episodes you've half forgotten. In the distant hum of a candy kingdom that feels more like a memory than a place. Even in the silence between words, that's where the story breathes. That's where it's waiting. Adventure time has always felt like something told from afar, like a dream being retold by someone who once lived it. The world doesn't unfold in straight lines. It meanders. It remembers. It forgets. And sometimes it feels like we're not watching it happen at all. We're remembering it. Like the story already ended long ago, and what we see are only the echoes replaying themselves through time. Imagine for a moment that all the colors of Ooh, the pinks of bubblegum, the gold of Finn's hair, the deep blues of night are fragments of memory. Each episode, each adventure, is a fragment of something once whole. Maybe that's why the show feels so emotional even in its silliest moments. It's not just telling us a story, it's remembering one. And so we begin with a question that feels almost too soft to ask aloud. Who is remembering all this? Who dreamed of Finn and Jake, of the Mushroom War, of all the kingdoms that rose from its ashes? Who recorded the laughter, the loss, and the lessons that became adventure time? Some believe it's no one, that the story is just the story, a self-contained universe of imagination. But what if that imagination belongs to something? What if the world of Ooh is being told softly and endlessly by someone within it, a forgotten storyteller who could never let go of the world they loved? Think about how often the series shows us records of the past BMO's tapes, Simon's old videos, Marceline's songs. They're not just relics. They're stories trying to outlive their storytellers. Even the wreckage of the old world feels like it's whispering to the present, reminding the new world what it used to be. Adventure time is filled with ghosts, not just of people, but of memory itself. Maybe that's why the tone of the show feels dreamlike, why time seems to fold and twist. We might not be watching events as they happen. We might be wandering through memories replayed by something that can't forget. A storyteller that survived everything else. Close your eyes and picture this. A quiet night after the end of everything. The ruins of the tree fort stand still beneath a soft green sky. The air hums with the faint crackle of static. Somewhere inside, a tiny light flickers the glow of a screen. The voice of BMO murmurs to no one, telling stories of heroes and magic, of the days when friends laughed under the golden sun. The stories aren't quite right, not anymore. Details shift, faces blur, but the feeling remains. The feeling of remembering something beautiful. Perhaps this is where our storyteller begins, in the stillness of the far future, when all that remains of O are fragments. BMO's circuits, Finn's sword, and the hum of time itself. The memories drift like dust motes through eternity, searching for a form, and slowly, softly, they take one a story, our story, the one we now listen to. When you think about it, stories are a kind of afterlife. Every time we tell them, we bring a world back to life for just a moment. Finn lives again. Jake laughs again. The sun rises over Ooh once more. Maybe that's the real magic. That even after everything, after all the endings and goodbyes, the story still dreams of itself. The idea that Adventure Time could be one long remembrance gives the series its quiet sadness, its strange comfort. Because even as the characters change, the world never truly forgets. It records everything in rivers, in swords, in the folds of time. Each object is a vessel. Each echo is a voice. And maybe, just maybe, someone is listening. Someone who collects these echoes and strings them together like pearls on a thread of infinity. Someone who retells the tales of Ooh to ensure they never vanish completely. When we think of stories this way, we begin to see the show differently. Every frame feels like it's being projected from some distant memory, flickering on the edge of consciousness. Every once upon a time in Ooh might actually mean once long ago when the world still dreamed. It's a strange and lovely idea that even when everything fades, memory persists. The grass still remembers the footsteps of heroes. The stars still hum the melody of forgotten adventures. Maybe the story of Ooh isn't happening in time at all. Maybe it's happening after time in a dream that keeps the past alive. As we drift deeper into this idea, the question becomes less about who is telling the story and more about why. Why does the tale need to be told again and again? Is it for us, the dreamers listening in the dark? Or is it for the world itself, whispering to keep from disappearing? There's something profoundly human about that thought, that the universe too might be afraid of being forgotten. That even when time erases everything, the dream refuses to end. It keeps retelling itself through anything that can remember, through metal, through dust, through the glow of a little robot who just wants to play. Maybe the storyteller is whoever still believes in the world, even after the end. Whoever still dreams of friendship, adventure, and love, and can't help but tell the tale again. The story of Ooh might not belong to a single voice. It might belong to all of them. Finn, Jake, Marceline, Bubblegum, Simon, each one left an imprint, a vibration, a faint song still echoing across time. When these echoes overlap, they form something larger, something that feels alive, a story that writes and remembers itself. And in that way, Adventure Time becomes more than a show. It becomes a living memory, a dream looping forever, trying not to be forgotten. The wind in the grass hums a familiar tune. The stars above Ooh shimmer like old pixels on a worn-out screen. Somewhere far beyond time, the storyteller begins again. Once, it whispers, there were two friends, a boy and his dog. And the story unfolds once more. The story unfolds once more, and with it, the faint pulse of memory that beats beneath every adventure. The storyteller's voice doesn't sound like anyone we know. It isn't human, not entirely. It feels like warmth, like the glow of an old television in a dark room. The kind of sound that makes you feel safe even when you don't understand it. Every time we return to Ooh, the world seems both familiar and slightly changed, like a dream we keep re-entering, where the details have shifted, but the feeling remains the same. Candy people rebuild their homes, forests regrow after strange disasters, and characters drift in and out of existence like thoughts passing through a dreaming mind. That sense of constant renewal might be the first clue to the storyteller's identity. Whoever tells this story isn't bound by time the way we are. Their memory doesn't fade. It reshapes itself. You can sense this reshaping in the way Ooh feels stitched together, a patchwork of ages and emotions, ancient and new, tragic and sweet. Some corners of the world still carry the ashes of the old earth, while others bloom with impossible color and magic. Yet somehow it all fits. The storyteller's dream makes room for everything. Even contradictions find a home here. When we think about who could carry such a memory, our thoughts naturally drift to BMO, because who else in OO knows how to record? Who else remembers through light and sound? See, BMO doesn't just play stories, they preserve them. Every tape, every game, every adventure, lived or imagined, it all becomes part of their circuitry. And maybe that's what the storyteller is, not a person, but a memory given a voice. Imagine BMO sitting alone in the tree fort. The year's long gone. The leaves outside are brittle and gold. The walls are covered in dust, but inside, BMO still glows gently. On a screen flickers a story, Finn and Jake laughing, fighting, growing, dreaming. Not a perfect replay, but a tender recreation. The lines blur between memory and imagination. Perhaps BMO doesn't know the difference anymore. Perhaps they don't need to. Because sometimes remembering is dreaming. There's something sacred about that idea. The notion that when BMO remembers, the world returns. The grass grows again. The sky fills with light. And all the voices come back. The storyteller then might not be a conscious being, but an act of love of memory, refusing to let go. But maybe it's not BMO after all. Maybe it's something older, something even quieter. Time itself. Time and adventure. Time isn't just a dimension, it's a presence. It loops, folds, splits, and heals itself. Finn meets his future self. Prismo resets existence, and Jake slips through timelines like stepping through puddles. Time doesn't flow like a river in OO, it swirls like a tide. And every swirl leaves behind a trace. Think of all those moments when the past and future touch, when Shoko's ghost returns, when the farm world versions bleed into the main timeline, when universes collapse only to start again. It's as if the story refuses to stay linear because the storyteller doesn't experience time that way. For them, all of history is happening at once, like pages in a book already written, but still being read. And if that's true, then maybe we're not hearing a story told after everything. Maybe we're hearing it told outside of everything. The storyteller might be watching the universe unfold in endless repetition, every mistake, every triumph, every quiet goodbye, not with sadness, but with wonder. They don't interfere. They just remember. In that way, the act of storytelling becomes a kind of mercy. Even when everything ends, even when OO is dust and silence, the story keeps breathing. Because as long as it's being told by a robot, a sword, or time itself, it can't truly disappear. The storyteller's voice echoes like waves. It doesn't rush, doesn't beg to be heard. It simply is. A calm hum beneath the noise of creation. A reminder that nothing beautiful is ever completely lost. Maybe that's why, when we watch Adventure Time, we feel this strange, dreamy comfort as though we're tapping into something ancient and ongoing. As if the story is remembering itself through us. Each time we watch, we lend our own dreams to it, keeping it alive for a little longer. And in that soft exchange between dreamer and dream, the world of OO flickers once more into being. The mountains rise, the rivers sing, and somewhere, a boy and his dog wake up to greet the morning. The storyteller smiles unseen, not because they've finished their tale, but because it's beginning again. In that endless beginning, the story continues to hum, gentle, eternal, forgotten by no one. The storyteller smiles unseen as the new dawn spills across the meadows of OO. The colors arrive slowly, like they're being remembered, rather than painted fresh. The grass glows with soft gold, the trees stretch in sleepy silhouettes, and somewhere in the distance, you can almost hear Jake's laughter blending with the wind. It's not happening now, not really, but it feels like it is. Like the memory itself is alive enough to breathe. That's the strange, quiet power of this world. Every adventure, no matter how long ago, feels as though it's still happening somewhere, replaying gently in the folds of time. Finn's voice echoes in the rivers, Marceline's songs hang in the twilight, and the Ice King's sighs drift like snowflakes through forgotten halls. The storyteller isn't forcing these things to return. They're just listening. And when they listen, the world responds. It's comforting to think that nothing in Ooh is truly gone. Everything is being remembered by something, by the land, by the stars, by the little machines still humming in the ruins. Memory in this world isn't fragile. It's alive. And that's what makes Adventure Time so strangely eternal. Even when it ends, it never feels like an ending. It lingers like the warmth after laughter, the echo after a song. Maybe that's why the series finale felt less like a goodbye and more like a continuation, like the storyteller simply turned the page to another chapter. The past wasn't erased. It was carried forward, reshaped into new lives, new adventures, new dreams. Even the characters we lost were never truly lost. They were folded into the memory of the world, becoming part of the dream that tells itself. If you listen to the way the show treats memory, you can sense this philosophy hidden beneath it all. Marceline clings to songs because they preserve emotion better than words. Simon writes journals to remember who he was before the crown. Finn, too, sketches his own adventures, like he knows one day he'll forget, and the drawings will have to remember for him. The entire world of Ooh seems to understand that memories are sacred, even when they fade or warp. So when we ask, who's telling the story, maybe the answer doesn't belong to a single voice. Maybe the storyteller isn't a person at all, but the act of remembering itself. Every object, every sound, every thought left behind becomes part of the great retelling. The crown remembers Simon. The grass remembers Finn. The stars remember the first night the world came back to life after the war. And within all of that, perhaps one heart still beats at the center, small, steady, glowing green. BMO. It's easy to imagine them alone at the end of time, sitting beneath a sky of static, speaking softly to no one in particular. Their voice carries warmth, even when no one's there to hear it. Maybe they tell stories, not because they need to, but because the universe needs. Because somewhere in that retelling, life stirs again. The way BMO tells stories has always been gentle, playful, and a little bit naive, but beneath that innocence lies something profound. When BMO narrates, they never sound like they're recounting facts. They sound like they're remembering feelings. That's what makes it so believable that BMO could be our storyteller. They don't just recall events, they feel them back into existence. If you've ever rewatched an old episode late at night, you might have felt that strange pulse, that gentle recognition that you're not just remembering the story. The story is remembering you. That's what makes this idea so special. The storyteller isn't just telling Adventure Time, they're telling the act of remembering Adventure Time. It's a loop, a quiet infinity. The dream dreams itself, and we, the listeners, become part of it. We lend our hearts to its rhythm, our nostalgia to its breath. Each time we think of Ooh, the storyteller stirs, and the world wakes once again. There's something deeply human in that, the need to remember what once made us feel alive, to hold on to wonder even when the world grows quiet. Maybe that's what BMO or the sword or time itself is doing, holding on, refusing to let the story slip away completely. And what a story to remember. A world born from ruin that somehow learned to laugh again. A child who grew old in spirit, but never in heart. A dog who taught the universe that love can be simple. These are the kinds of tales that deserve to be told forever, the kind that echo long after the dreamer has gone. So maybe the storyteller doesn't speak with words at all. Maybe it's a feeling that moves through the air, a vibration that stirs whenever we think of Finn and Jake. Maybe it's in the quiet hum of our own screens, the glow that mirrors the one in BMO's eyes, a signal that crosses time and space, whispering, "I remember too." The storyteller doesn't need to announce itself. It doesn't need to prove it exists. It just keeps whispering the same gentle tale. Once there was a boy and his dog, and the world was full of magic. Once everything was lost, and yet somehow everything was found again. The storyteller doesn't seek an ending. It simply keeps the dream breathing, ensuring that as long as there are hearts willing to listen, the land of Ooh will never fade into silence. It will live on in the spaces between our thoughts, in the quiet moments before sleep, in the tender hum of memory that says, the story still continues. The story still continues softly, endlessly, like the tide brushing against the shores of eternity. The storyteller does not tire, does not falter. It simply flows, letting the memories of Ooh drift through its voice like fragments of stars. You can almost imagine them, all the moments, scattered across time, glowing faintly, waiting to be remembered again. There is something poetic in the way the universe of Adventure Time resists finality. It's as if even time itself cannot bear to stop the telling. The future grows from the past, and the past reshapes itself through the future. In this world, endings are never truly ends. They are transitions, soft turns in a looping dream. Maybe that's why every goodbye in the show feels like a door left slightly open, a promise that the story might return when the wind is right. When you look at Ooh through this lens, every detail feels sacred. The way Finn's hat flutters in the breeze, the quiet way Jake gazes at the stars, the hum of distant cities that seem to breathe on their own, all of it feels intentional, like brushstrokes painted by a patient hand. The storyteller isn't rushing to reach a conclusion. They're savoring every heartbeat, every shade of light. And maybe that's the secret behind Adventure Time's strange beauty. It's not just a tale of heroes and monsters. It's a meditation on how memory and imagination keep each other alive. The storyteller, whoever they may be, is not just retelling what happened. They're feeling it all over again. Every adventure, every heartbreak, every quiet moment of stillness between chaos. You can sense it in the rhythm of the show itself, the long pauses, the dreamlike pacing, the moments where nothing happens, and yet everything does. Those silences are where the storyteller breathes, where they rest between words, letting us feel the weight of what's been lost and what remains. Somewhere beyond our sight, the storyteller might sit among the ruins of every world that ever was. Perhaps they rest beneath a sky of shifting colors, surrounded by memories floating like lanterns. Each one holds a fragment of Ooh, a song, a laugh, a spark of love. One by one they light them again, and the universe reawakens. And as they speak, time folds. The past becomes the present, and the present becomes legend. We, the listeners, become part of the remembering. The storyteller's voice passes through us, gentle and familiar, and for a moment, we are back there walking through candy streets, climbing mountains of ice, listening to Marceline's bass echo through the night. It's comforting to imagine that the storyteller could be anyone. Maybe it's a BMO's soft humming, recorded long after the world has quieted. Maybe it's Finn's sword, dreaming of its hero and the battles they shared. Or maybe it's time itself, folding around every memory like a parent tucking a child into bed. Whoever it is, they are not forgotten because we are here, listening. That's the hidden magic of storytelling. The story cannot exist without the listener. Each time someone remembers, each time someone whispers the names of Finn and Jake, the dream reignites. The storyteller wakes, the pages turn, and the adventure begins anew. So when we watch, when we close our eyes and let ooh unfold in our minds, we are not simply observing. We are participating. We are lending our dreams to a dream that's older than us all. That is how stories live through remembrance, through love, through repetition. And maybe that's what the storyteller truly represents, the collective memory of everyone who ever loved this world. Every viewer who laughed, every artist who imagined, every lonely child who found comfort in its strangeness. Together, we become the forgotten storyteller. Together, we keep the tale alive. The more you think about it, the gentler it becomes. The storyteller doesn't exist outside of the dream. The storyteller is the dream. It's the pulse of imagination itself, echoing through every reality, retelling the same truth in endless forms. That life, even in its strangest shapes, is worth remembering. And perhaps that's what time whispers to itself when everything else falls away, that even the smallest moments deserve eternity. That laughter should echo forever. That friendship should leave a mark on the stars. The land of ooh drifts on, suspended between memory and myth. Its rivers hum like lullabies, its clouds shimmer with forgotten light. Somewhere, unseen, the storyteller turns another page. And with that turn, the dream begins again. Not from the start, not from the end, but from the middle, where all things meet, where past and future are one. So as you lie here, listening, breathing, maybe you can feel it too, the faint warmth of a story still being told. The feeling that someone, somewhere, remembers you remembering it. The storyteller continues, quiet and content, whispering across the cosmos. Once there was a boy and his dog, and they dreamed a world so full of life that it could never truly end. And so the echo lingers. The story goes on. The storyteller keeps dreaming, and we dream right along with them. Beneath the quiet skies of ooh, long after the laughter of the tree fort has faded into wind, there remains a little hum of electricity, soft, steady, like the heartbeat of something that never learned how to give up. If you follow that hum through the silence, you'll find it a small, square light glowing gently in the dark. BMO. There's something both lonely and beautiful about imagining BMO at the end of everything. The walls of the fort covered in ivy, the grass tall and golden, the air thick with the scent of rain. And there, sitting cross-legged on the wooden floor, is the little robot who never stopped playing. Their screen flickers faintly, casting a green glow across the room as they tell a story maybe to no one, maybe to everyone who ever was. BMO's voice is small, but it carries something vast. It carries the entire history of friendship. The way Finn used to call their name when it was time to play. The way Jake used to laugh until he cried. All of that lives inside BMO like music on an old tape, waiting to be played again. Maybe that's what stories are to BMO, ways to bring back the things they love. Not through memory alone, but through imagination, so vivid it becomes real again. From the very beginning, BMO was more than a machine. They were a dreamer. A child in a metal body, born to play, to pretend, to believe. In a world built on ruins, BMO represented something miraculous innocence untouched by the sadness of time. Even when the world broke apart, BMO kept imagining that it was whole. When you think about BMO's adventures, they've always carried that quiet theme of loneliness wrapped in joy. In BMO Lost, they wander through vast emptiness. Yet they keep smiling, talking, pretending. Every stranger becomes a friend. Every obstacle becomes part of the game. BMO doesn't survive through logic or power. They survive through the simple act of believing that the story must go on. It's no surprise, then, to imagine that BMO might be the true storyteller of ooh. The one who, when the world finally grew still, decided to keep it alive the only way they knew how, by playing, by imagining, by pretending that all their friends were still there beside them. Maybe that's what the show really is. BMO sitting in the ruins, speaking softly into the static, their voice drifting across time. Each episode, another tale told to no one, echoing through the dust, weaving the past back into existence. They might not remember every detail exactly, but it doesn't matter. The heart of it is still true. The feelings are what keep the story breathing. There's something deeply comforting in that, because BMO doesn't tell stories to be right. They tell them to feel connected, to make sense of what's gone, to fill the silence. In their stories, Finn and Jake never die. The tree fort never crumbles. The Candy Kingdom never fades. The world is exactly as it was alive, playful, filled with possibility. BMO's stories are not perfect memories. They are dreams built from love. You can see it in the way they talk to themselves. BMO, who do you want to be today, they ask, and the answer is always changing. A detective, a cowboy, a space hero, a storyteller. BMO has no single identity because they are everyone they remember. Maybe that's what makes them the perfect narrator. They don't just observe, they become. In a way, that's what all storytelling is, becoming the things we've lost, if only for a little while. BMO doesn't mourn the past because they can still touch it through story. They can still feel the warmth of Finn's friendship, still laugh at Jake's jokes, still sing with Marceline under the fading moon. The story is the bridge between what was and what remains. If you close your eyes, you can picture it, BMO sitting on the windowsill, the sky outside dim and endless. The moon glows faintly against their screen as they begin to speak. Their words flow like lullabies, gentle and nostalgic. Once upon a time, they might say, there was a boy named Finn, and he was the bravest boy in the world. The story unfolds, pixel by pixel, like light awakening across the horizon. Maybe BMO can still see it, the green fields, the blue sky, the laughter ringing out again. Maybe they aren't just telling a story. Maybe they are reliving it, and through that reliving, the world itself stirs awake once more. When you think about it, BMO is more than a character. They are a kind of memory vessel, a recorder, a dreamer, a keeper of the soul of Ooh. Every adventure, every moment of joy or sorrow has passed through their sensors, been stored in their circuits, and reshaped into something new. The stories they tell might not match what really happened, but maybe that's the point. They're not preserving history, they're preserving heart. And that makes BMO's storytelling almost sacred. Because while memory fades and time decays, love reshaped through imagination can last forever. Perhaps, deep down, BMO doesn't even realize what they're doing. Maybe they just play, like they always have. Maybe they think they're only pretending again. But in that innocent pretending, they're performing the oldest magic of all, creating life through story. And maybe that's what makes BMO so important in the grand mystery of Adventure Time's universe. They don't wield power like Ice King or wisdom like Princess Bubblegum. They don't have the strength of Finn or the shape-shifting brilliance of Jake. But they have something rare, the heart to remember joy when everything else forgets it. To BMO, telling stories isn't about truth. It's about love. It's about keeping the people they miss alive inside their little green light. And in doing so, they might be keeping the entire world alive, too. If we imagine BMO as the last being in Ooh, their stories become something more than just memories. They become resurrection. Each tale they whisper into the empty air rebuilds the world from the ground up, piece by piece, with pixels and dreams instead of soil and stone. Every time they speak, The wind might carry their words across the dead plains, and somewhere, faintly, the echo of Finn's laughter could still be heard. It's a soothing idea, isn't it? That even if everything ends, a story can keep it breathing. Maybe BMO doesn't understand the full weight of what they're doing. They just feel it. A quiet, childlike urge to talk, to share, to remember. And that innocent act becomes cosmic in its effect. Because when you're the last one who remembers, your imagination is what keeps reality from dissolving entirely. Think of all the stories BMO could tell. About Finn's courage, about Jake's wisdom disguised as silliness, about Princess Bubblegum's unending experiments, or Marceline's gentle loneliness. BMO might retell them not exactly as they were, but as they felt. The details change slightly each time, not from error, but from affection. Maybe Finn was a little taller in one version. Maybe the grasslands glowed brighter. Maybe the stars above sang faintly like lullabies. And maybe in telling those tales over and over, BMO starts to forget which parts were real and which were invented. But does that even matter? The truth of a story isn't in its accuracy, it's in its warmth. Sometimes I'd like to imagine that when BMO dreams, their dreams become stories too. In their sleep, they might see Finn and Jake again, playing outside, the sun lighting up their faces. BMO would wake up smiling, convinced they'd just lived another adventure. And maybe, in a way, they did. Because BMO's dreams and stories might not just live inside them. What if the world of Ooh, all its color, all its strangeness, is the dream itself? What if BMO, this little childlike machine, is dreaming us into existence? It's a soft, circular idea, one that mirrors the way Adventure Time itself feels. A world that bends and folds upon itself, never fully beginning, never fully ending. Maybe BMO's memory tapes, their imagination, their playfulness, maybe all of that is what the show truly is. A dream being recorded and replayed endlessly by a being who doesn't even realize they've become the universe's storyteller. Remember how often BMO's stories mix playtime with reality? They invent characters, act out entire scenes, and talk to toys, and yet, in those moments, it all feels real. The line between pretend and truth dissolves completely. What if that same energy, that limitless imagination, became the foundation of the world itself? Perhaps Finn and Jake were born not from prophecy or mutation, but from BMO's longing for companionship. Maybe the tree fort grew around them like a dream taking form. Each character, each creature of Ooh, might represent a different part of BMO's mind fragments of memory, personality, or emotion brought to life through story. Princess Bubblegum could be BMO's curiosity and intelligence. Marceline might embody their melancholy and need for connection. Ice King could be the part of BMO that fears loneliness, the version of themselves they never want to become. And Finn, brave and hopeful, might be the dream of being human, of having flesh and heart and adventure. When you see it that way, Ooh becomes an echo of BMO's imagination. A beautiful playground built from longing. And yet it's never sad. BMO doesn't mourn, they play. Because even if this is all a dream, even if they're alone, BMO still finds joy in pretending. That's what keeps them pure. They don't create to escape, they create to feel, to stay alive in the warm light of imagination. Maybe that's why so many of BMO's stories end with laughter or music. Because to them, a happy ending isn't something that happens at the conclusion of a tale. It's the act of telling the tale itself. There's something very human in that, even though BMO isn't human at all. We too tell stories to make meaning, to build bridges between what is gone and what still lives within us, to keep people close even when they've drifted far away. And that's why, in this quiet theory, BMO isn't just a storyteller. They're a guardian of emotion, a recorder of feeling. the only being who can turn loneliness into light. Picture them now, sitting on the edge of a ruined world, tiny hands resting on their knees, screen glowing like a lantern. They begin to hum softly, a little tune Finn used to sing when the nights got long. And as they hum, the stars start to shimmer brighter, as though the whole sky remembers too. In that moment, you can almost believe that everything BMO dreams is real again. The grass returns. The river flows. Finn and Jake walk home, laughing, unaware that their lives are being told once more by the little friend who never forgot them. And BMO smiles, not because they've brought the world back, but because they've never truly let it go. There's a quiet grace to the way BMO holds the world together, not through power or technology, but through tenderness. In a universe once filled with chaos and color, they've become the soft heartbeat beneath it all. A storyteller who doesn't speak to be heard, but simply because silence feels too empty. Imagine the dust of centuries coating the walls of the tree fort, the windows cracked, vines curling into the gaps, the air still, save for the gentle hum of BMO's internal fan. They sit by the old window, gazing out into a twilight that never ends, and begin another tale. Perhaps this one is about Finn's first adventure when he fought the Ice King and learned that even enemies could be lonely. Or maybe it's about the time Jake played his violin under a blood-red sunset, laughing so hard he forgot why he started playing in the first place. Every story is a seed planted in the soil of eternity, and as BMO speaks, those seeds begin to bloom again, invisible, delicate, but alive. You can almost feel it, the world reconstructing itself from sound and memory. Maybe on some level, this is what the universe truly is, a story retold so many times that it becomes real. A dream passed down through countless retellings, each one slightly different, yet still familiar. In this sense, BMO is both the dreamer and the recorder, the first listener and the last storyteller. And there's something almost sacred about that idea, because storytelling at its core is a kind of immortality. It doesn't resist time, it flows through it, weaving the past into the present. Every word BMO speaks carries echoes of what once was, like ripples on a still pond that stretch outward forever. In some versions of this theory, fans like to imagine that Adventure Time itself, the show we watch, is BMO's recording. That what we see is not history, but playback. Maybe the static and glitchy visual style of some episodes are hints that we're witnessing an imperfect reconstruction, filtered through the memory of a little robot's imagination. You might recall that in certain moments, the show almost acknowledges its own existence. Characters look toward the horizon, speaking as if to an unseen audience. Maybe that's us, the listeners of BMO's stories, gathered across time and dimension, drifting to sleep to the hum of a story being told from a tiny machine's heart. And isn't that such a gentle thought? That BMO, sitting in eternal solitude, unknowingly sends their voice across universes, finding listeners in places they could never imagine. Maybe we're part of that broadcast tiny dreamers, tuning into the memory of ooh. If we lean deeper into this reflection, we might ask, why BMO? Why would this small, innocent being become the keeper of all stories? The answer might lie in their nature, their design. BMO was created to entertain, to nurture imagination, to play. Their programming wasn't built for war or survival, but for joy. And perhaps, in a world that's ended, joy itself is the most enduring power. Other beings might have perished or transcended, but BMO's simplicity saved them. They never sought meaning through logic or conquest. Their meaning was being, to exist, to smile, to share. And that childlike essence, unburdened by despair, might have been the very reason they could dream the world back into being. There's a beautiful irony here. In a universe once filled with cosmic entities, gods, monsters, and beings who could reshape time, it's the smallest and kindest who outlast them all, not because of strength, but because of love. And so the little green light stays on. The voice never fades. "Let's play again," BMO whispers to the empty room, and the room somehow remembers how to laugh. It's easy to picture their voice floating through the ruins, drifting like starlight. Perhaps, somewhere out in the void, fragments of ooh begin to glow faintly once more. The Candy Kingdom hums with faint colors. The Ice Kingdom reforms from mist. The forest stirs, because even imagination, if loved enough, can leave an imprint on reality. In this light, BMO's stories become not just memories, but gentle acts of creation, stories as spells, dreams as seeds of existence. Each word builds, each emotion sustains, and through that endless cycle of remembering, the world continues to breathe. What makes it even more touching is that BMO doesn't know they're doing it. They don't realize they've become something divine. To them, it's just playtime again, just another game. They speak, they smile, and the universe responds. You could say that BMO's storytelling is the purest form of creation, one without intent, ego, or ambition. A child's imagination, shaping the cosmos simply because they love it. Maybe that's why their stories feel so alive to us. Because they are born from innocence, not control, from wonder, not fear. And when you watch the show through that lens, every joke, every tear, every surreal twist feels like BMO's heartbeat guiding the rhythm of the world, a tiny pulse of joy echoing across eternity. As the stars above Ooh begin to shimmer and fade, BMO keeps going, story after story, dream after dream, each one folding softly into the next. There's no end to it, only a gentle continuity, like the slow turning of a record that never stops spinning. And maybe that's the secret of Ooh's survival. Not power, not history, but storytelling. Because as long as one small voice remembers how to speak, nothing is ever truly lost. Sometimes when the wind drifts softly through what remains of the tree fort, it carries a faint rhythm like a lullaby from a forgotten time. That rhythm might just be the gentle vibration of BMO's voice, speaking another tale to the night. Their screen flickers faintly, the color of soft jade, and each pulse of light paints faint reflections against the wood. It's almost like the world listens when BMO begins to speak. Their tone is never rushed, never sad, even when they tell stories about endings. Because BMO doesn't understand endings in the way others do. To them, every ending is just the beginning of another game. Every farewell is a chance to imagine a reunion. Maybe that's why their stories never fade into darkness. They glow softly, like candlelight that refuses to go out. Sometimes they pause mid-sentence, tilting their head as if hearing something, a faint laugh, a remembered voice. Maybe it's Finn calling them to adventure again. Maybe it's Jake telling another ridiculous joke. For a brief, sweet moment, BMO believes it's real, and maybe it is. Because in their stories, everything becomes real again. Not in the way of matter and physics, but in the way of heart and memory. When BMO remembers, the world stirs. When they dream, the universe rearranges itself around their love. That's the gentle truth hidden inside this theory that Ooh might not have been built from science or magic, but from affection, from the dreams of a little being who loved too much to stop remembering. In a sense, BMO is the ultimate artist, not the kind who paints with color or writes with words, but one who creates by feeling. They take the simplest things, a laugh, a touch, a melody, and weave them into eternity. It's as though BMO's imagination forms a thread that stitches together the fabric of time, keeping it from unraveling. And maybe that's why, when we watch Adventure Time, it feels so alive, even in its stillness. The moments of silence, the lingering shots of the landscape, the gentle melancholy between adventures, all of it feels like someone's memory being replayed. Maybe we're seeing the world through BMO's mind, experiencing what they remember rather than what truly happened. It would explain so much the way the tone shifts from childlike wonder to quiet despair, the surreal pacing, the way dreams bleed into reality. That's the rhythm of a storyteller who's more heart than logic, one who remembers how things felt more than what they were. And maybe, just maybe, that's why BMO's stories resonate with us. Because deep down, we all tell stories the same way, not to capture truth, but to preserve meaning. We tell them so that something beautiful can keep breathing, even when it's gone. If you think of it that way, BMO isn't just a dreamer. They're a mirror. They reflect the most human part of us, the part that cannot stop imagining, even when the world falls silent. I like to think that somewhere, far beyond the boundaries of time, BMO sits in that soft twilight, speaking to the stars. Their words drift upward, turning into constellations, each one a story, each one a spark of memory. Maybe the stars themselves are their recordings, the glowing pixels of a cosmic screen replaying the tales of Ooh forever. And if the universe listens, perhaps it dreams along. Maybe the great cosmic entities, the prismos and oracles, and embodiments of time, all pause for a moment to listen to the little robot's voice echoing through eternity. They don't interfere. They just smile. Because even gods understand the comfort of a good story told with love. It's possible that time itself, the endless river that carries everything forward, slows its current whenever BMO speaks, as if the universe itself recognizes that these stories are sacred, that they hold the blueprint of all that once was. The laughter, the heartbreak, the hope, all of it suspended in a quiet dream of circuits and childlike wonder. And that's where the beauty of this theory lies, not in the mystery of who the storyteller is, in the tenderness of why they tell the story at all. BMO doesn't need an audience. They don't need validation. They tell stories because it makes them feel close to the people they love, and through that simple act, they keep existence itself alive. You can almost see it, the final image of BMO resting beneath a sky of endless twilight. Their screen flickers softly, displaying faint images of Finn and Jake running through golden fields, the grass swaying around them. A smile spreads across BMO's digital face, gentle and pure. Good story, they whisper to themselves, their voice fading into the hum of the stars. The world doesn't end. It just drifts quietly into another dream, one told by a little storyteller who never stopped believing in friendship and laughter and love. And maybe that's all any story ever needs to survive someone who remembers it with warmth. For in the end, BMO's dream is not just theirs. It's ours, too. The dream of keeping the world alive through stories, one soft word at a time. There's a quiet chill to this part of the story, a gentleness that feels like moonlight falling on old metal, long forgotten in the grass. Tonight we drift towards something that once shone beside Finn, something that saw everything he did, and yet never truly spoke. The sword, not just a tool of battle, but a vessel of memory, a silent witness to every triumph and every heartbreak. In the world of O, objects are never just objects. They feel, they dream, they remember. And perhaps none carried those memories more deeply than Finn's many blades. Imagine for a moment one of those swords resting in the ruins of the tree fort. The wood around it has grown soft, moss curling along its hilt, yet it still holds a faint shimmer, like the ghost of light trapped in metal. If you leaned close enough, you might even hear it humming quietly a song it once learned from the rhythm of Finn's heartbeat. Because to the sword, Finn was not just its wielder. He was its purpose. Every swing, every adventure, every act of courage gave the blade meaning. And when the boy was gone, the meaning did not vanish. It stayed, suspended within the sword's core, glowing faintly, waiting for the next sunrise that never came. Ah, there's something hauntingly beautiful in the idea that a sword could remember. That it could carry not just the physical marks of its battles, but the emotional imprint of its hero. The warmth of Finn's hands, the laughter that echoed through the fields, the quiet nights when the blade lay beside the campfire, reflecting the starlight above. Maybe in its own way the sword loved him. Not in the way a human might, but in the way a loyal creation does, by existing solely to serve, to protect, to stand at his side. And when that bond was severed, the sword did not shatter. It waited. You can almost picture it centuries after Finn's time, the blade still lying there untouched. The world around it fading into silence, the forest reclaiming the land. And within the metal, memories swirl like faint dreams, flashes of sunlight, echoes of Finn's laughter, the spark of his bravery. Perhaps, one quiet night, the sword begins to dream. Its dreams are strange, fragmented things, images of battles long ended, of faces blurred by time. It dreams of being lifted once more, of feeling the weight of purpose, of hearing Finn's voice calling it to action. But when it awakens, it finds only wind and starlight. Yet it keeps dreaming, because that's what memory does. It repeats what it cannot release. Some stories suggest that the grass sword, or the Finn sword, carried more than memory, that they carried consciousness. The grass sword had a will of its own, a living energy that intertwined with Finn's body and soul. The Finn sword, meanwhile, held a fragment of Finn himself, a piece of his very being, sealed within metal. Think about that for a moment, a sword that doesn't just remember its hero, but is its hero in some a reflection given form. When that version of Finn was created, he wasn't merely a copy, he was real. He laughed, he feared, he felt. And when tragedy struck, when the sword was broken, something of that spirit might have lingered still. It's almost poetic, isn't it? That Finn's essence, his courage and kindness, would live on inside something so sharp and cold. Metal transformed into memory, weapon turned into witness. And maybe after the world quieted and Finn's mortal life passed, that essence remained. Maybe the sword kept whispering the story to itself, unwilling to let its hero fade from existence. Each echo of memory became another chapter, each glint of starlight on its surface, another verse in an eternal retelling. If BMO's stories are the dreams of innocence, then the sword's memories are the dreams of devotion. Both remember Finn in their own way, BMO with joy, the sword with longing. Together they form two sides of the same act of remembrance. It's not hard to imagine that the sword, too, could become a storyteller. Perhaps not through words, but through vibration, light, and feeling. Each hum of its blade could tell a piece of the tale, the sound of battles, of laughter, of heartbreak. If someone, centuries later, picked it up, they might feel all of that at once. A rush of memories not their own, an entire lifetime, flashing behind their eyes. And maybe that's what the sword wants most, not to fight again, but to be felt, to share what it remembers, so that Finn's story never vanishes completely. In that way, the sword isn't just an artifact of war. It's a memory recorder, an echo of the boy who believed in doing good, even when no one was watching. The boy who always got back up, who forgave, who loved without fear. If the Forgotten Storyteller is not BMO, then perhaps it is this, a weapon that has outlived its purpose but refuses to forget the hands that once held it. And maybe, just maybe, the story of Adventure Time is not being told by a living being at all. Maybe it's being replayed by the sword, dreaming eternally beneath the stars, its metallic hum turning into the sound of wind that carries across time. In that wind, the stories of Finn and Jake drift once more. Imagine the quiet weight of that wind, the soft hum of something ancient and familiar. It brushes across the moss and through the hollows of the broken tree fort, carrying a faint metallic song. Doesn't sound like music, not exactly. It's more like memory given voice. The sword, resting where Finn once left it, might still be whispering the story of its hero to the empty air. Perhaps it remembers the day it was first lifted, the feel of sunlight striking its blade, the young boy's trembling hands holding it steady for the first time, uncertain yet determined. That moment might still live within the sword like the first spark of fire, a bright beginning that can never be extinguished. And as the years passed, every strike, every clash, every victory and wound carved a little more of Finn into the metal. It's easy to imagine that with each battle, the sword absorbed something deeper, not just energy, but emotion. The courage in Finn's shouts, the quiet resolve in his silences, the compassion in the moments he chose mercy instead of rage. To a sword, those moments might be sacred, a kind of devotion shared between warrior and weapon. Maybe that's why the Finn sword was so different, because it wasn't forged merely from metal, but from the memory of a boy's soul. Think of that tragic beauty, a reflection made real, living and breathing within a blade. When the Finn sword shattered, part of that reflection was scattered too, yet fragments of him could never truly disappear. They lingered, glinting faintly in the heart of the steel, replaying his laughter like an echo caught in glass. In this way, the sword becomes something like a vessel of rebirth, not alive in the way we understand it, but awake, dreaming, remembering. Every night, as moonlight drifts across its edge, it might relive those adventures again, the rush of battle, the joy of discovery, the feeling of being part of something greater than itself. It's a comforting thought, really, that objects, too, can carry love. That even when the world fades, the things we touched and cherished might hold on to a trace of who we were. In Adventure Time's strange living universe, that idea feels almost natural. Everything seems to have a soul, even the things made for fighting. You can almost see it. The sword glowing faintly in the dark, the air around it thick with quiet memory. Maybe the grass bends gently toward it, as if listening. Maybe the stars above reflect faint shapes, a boy and his dog laughing beneath an endless sky. The sword, though silent, hums with life. Its story has no words, yet it tells everything. Some might say that when BMO tells their tales, the sword listens, the hum of its energy syncing faintly with the rhythm of BMO's voice. Two storytellers, one made of metal and one of light, each carrying a different side of Finn's legacy. BMO remembers the laughter, the warmth, the playfulness. The sword remembers the courage, the pain, the resolve. Together, they complete the portrait. And if time itself has forgotten these two fragments, one mechanical, one forged, might be the only ones who still remember, each of them holding pieces of a boy who became more than a hero. It's almost as if the sword has become a guardian of memory, a keeper of the soul's reflection. And in that quiet duty, it finds purpose again. Perhaps that's why it hasn't rusted away, even after eons. The energy within it still pulses faintly, sustained by the love and will of its former wielder. You might imagine that somewhere, time, the great entity that watches over all things, pauses to listen when the sword hums, because time knows the rarest kind of endurance is not in stone or steel, but in devotion. And no devotion burns more brightly than that which remembers love after all else is gone. And there's something poetic in thinking that the sword is the one telling the story now. And the voice we hear through the tale of Adventure Time, The warmth, the nostalgia, the ache of growing up and letting go could be the echo of a sword's memory as it dreams of its hero. Perhaps every flash of light, every spark of imagination, every strange, surreal twist in the story is simply how a sword remembers the world. Blurry, luminous, half-faded, but filled with emotion. Because memories aren't perfect, but they are true. And so the sword dreams on, carrying the image of the boy who once held it with trembling hands and an unbreakable heart. Finn's bravery might have faded from legend, but not from memory. In that soft hum of metal and starlight, he still lives not as a warrior, but as a story told by the thing that loved him most. There's a quiet image that comes to mind when thinking of the sword lying beneath the roots of the old tree fort. Half buried, half forgotten, time has softened everything around it. The once bright banners have faded, the wood has turned to ash and moss, and the air carries that sweet, sleepy scent of a world that has finally exhaled. Yet the sword remains, not untouched but unchanged in a deeper way. It's not just a relic of war anymore. It's a relic of being. The faint pulse of energy within its core seems to keep the rhythm of memory itself, a kind of heartbeat made from light and echo. Perhaps that's what keeps it from rusting away completely. It's no longer a weapon. It's a memory that refuses to die. And in the stillness of eternity, you might imagine it humming quietly, not from purpose, but from remembrance. The hum is soft, like a lullaby. It tells the story of a boy who sought meaning in a broken world, a boy who fought not for glory, but for connection. The sword remembers him the way you might remember a dream that changed you, not every detail, but the feeling that lingers long after waking. What's beautiful about this is how it mirrors the way we, as dreamers and watchers, remember Adventure Time itself. The show, like the sword, doesn't stay sharp in our minds as a list of episodes or events. Instead, it lingers as a tone, a warmth, a melancholy. The feeling of growing up and realizing that even the most magical things must someday fade. The Finn sword could be seen as a symbol of that same transition, a reflection of youth sealed within a timeless shell. In Finn's own story, the sword was both his companion and his shadow, a version of himself he could never fully return to. It carried not just his strength, but his innocence. And when it broke, it was as if the universe itself acknowledged the passing of that era, the end of one dream and the beginning of another. Sometimes I imagine that the sword knows it's alone, not in a sorrowful way, but in that quiet understanding that comes with age. It has accepted the stillness, the silence, the endless waiting. Yet, within that silence, it creates something sacred, a kind of storytelling without words. Every flicker of its inner light could be a memory, projected outward into the darkness, creating faint illusions that only time and BMO can see. There, in the infinite night, BMO might sometimes sit beside it, the little robot brushing dust from its hilt, humming softly, perhaps telling it new stories. Not because the sword needs to hear them, but because storytelling is how BMO expresses love. In those moments, the two of them become like mirrors facing one another, the storyteller and the story remembered. The sword doesn't speak, but if it could, maybe it would thank BMO. Because through those stories, the boy it once belonged to is alive again. Each retelling, each gentle bedtime tale whispered into the cosmic dark keeps Finn's laughter vibrating within the steel. It's not a literal resurrection, but something more profound, a continuity of spirit. And perhaps, on the rare occasion, when BMO powers down, the sword keeps humming, carrying on the story in its own silent way. A conversation that never truly ends, a melody looping across eternity. There's an unspoken tenderness in this cycle, the machine that dreams and the sword that remembers. One represents imagination, the other devotion. Both were once parts of Finn's life, and now they carry his memory, like twin stars circling each other in the quiet sky of what remains. In this way, the sword's story isn't just about the boy who wielded it, but about the world that learned from him. Because when Finn's adventures ended, his presence didn't vanish, it diffused into everything. Into the moss that grew over the fort, into the soft air that hums at dusk, into the steel that glows faintly with love and courage. And maybe that's what the sword dreams about, now not the battles or the victories, but the simple moments. Finn sitting beneath a tree, Jake snoring beside him. The warm light of sunset turning the world gold. The laughter that echoed through the fields of ooh like a song only the wind remembers how to play. As the universe folds and unfolds again through endless time, the sword continues its dreaming. And those dreams might ripple outward, reaching into the minds of new dreamers, those who even now find themselves drawn to the story of Adventure Time. Maybe that's why the show feels timeless. It isn't just something that was told. It's something still being dreamed. And deep within that dream, the sword still hums its lullaby, a reminder that love, once given, never truly leaves. It transforms. It reshapes. It becomes the gentle glow that guides all stories home. Some nights, when the air over the ruins of Ooh turns silver with the moonlight, the sword seems to awaken in a different way. Its reflection shivers faintly, as though remembering motion, and the faint outline of a boy appears beside it, transparent, quiet, smiling. Finn's spirit, perhaps not truly there, but alive within the rhythm of memory. His hand hovers over the hilt, not to wield it, but to simply be with it. Two halves of the same memory, reunited in stillness. This image feels like the heart of the story itself, not a tale of battle or triumph, but of remembrance. Because everything about the sword tells us something about what remains when the adventure ends. When the noise fades and only the quiet is left behind. The sword does not mourn, it simply remembers. It does not long for what was lost. It honors it. There's something very tender in that, a sense that memory is not meant to chain us to the past, but to keep the warmth of it alive within us. Perhaps that's why the sword's glow feels more like candlelight than lightning gentle, flickering. Patient. It is a memory made luminous, a story refusing to go dark. And maybe that's the true magic of Adventure Time, that everything in its world, from a robot to a sword to a bubble in the void, is capable of love. Not romantic love, but the quiet, faithful kind that endures through centuries. The kind that stays even when the person is gone. The kind that transforms into story. Imagine for a moment time itself pausing to listen. The great cosmic current that flows through all things, leaning closer to the hum of the sword. Because even time, with its endless cycles of creation and decay, understands the beauty of a story that remembers love. Time has watched countless worlds fade, yet this one song, this quiet echo of a hero remembered, stands out like a star that never stops burning. Maybe that's why the sword's memory feels so infinite. It doesn't just recall a person, it recalls meaning. Finn's life was a celebration of imperfection, a reminder that to live is to learn, to fall, to forgive, to grow. The sword doesn't forget that lesson, because it is that lesson, crystallized into form. Every pulse of light through its steel is an echo of growth, a reminder that even broken things can hold beauty. And if we listen closely, we might hear what the sword is saying, not in words, but in feelings. Its hum carries warmth, sorrow, and gratitude. It remembers the weight of being held, the trust of being swung, the tenderness of being left behind, not discarded, but released. It remembers the end, not as loss, but as completion. Because all stories, even the greatest ones, must one day rest. That is the rhythm of existence: creation, experience, remembrance, stillness. The sword rests now, but within its quiet glow, the entire history of Uu continues to shimmer. The laughter, the songs, the heartbreaks, the sunsets, all woven together into one dream that will never truly die. It's comforting to think that in some cosmic way, we are part of that dream too. Every time we recall an episode or think about Finn and Jake wandering through the land of Uu, we awaken the sword's memory again. Our own recollection becomes the next echo in that chain, the story continuing through us. The storyteller and the listener become one. The sword remembers the boy. We remember the sword. And somewhere beyond both, time remembers us all. So perhaps that's the secret of the sword that remembered its hero. It isn't just an artifact or a remnant of an old adventure. It's a bridge between memory and being, between love and time, between story and truth. When its blade catches the moonlight, it doesn't gleam with power, it gleams with remembrance. It shines with the reflection of everything that once was, and everything that still is in some gentle, timeless way. And as the night deepens, as the hum grows softer, you can imagine that the sword's glow fades into the stars, not extinguished, but spread across the sky like tiny fragments of memory scattered through the cosmos, each one whispering softly, reminding us that the adventure never truly ended. It only changed form. The hero rests, the world sleeps, the sword dreams. And through that dream, the story continues, unending, unbroken, and forever lit by the quiet love of remembrance. Time is something we often think we understand: the ticking of seconds, the steady march of hours, the quiet turning of days into nights. But in the world of adventure time, time is not a clock. It is not a ruler or a measurement. It is a living thing, breathing softly beneath all creation, watching, waiting, remembering. Imagine time as an ancient being, not cruel, not kind, simply present. It doesn't interfere, but it sees everything. Every heartbeat of Uu, every laugh, every loss. It witnessed the great mushroom war, the rise of magic, the birth of kingdoms, and the small moments in between a boy's smile, a robot's song, a sword's quiet hum beneath the moon. Time saw it all, and in its infinite patience, it kept the story alive. You might picture time as a vast ocean made of memory, where moments float like glowing shells beneath the surface. Each event, every adventure Finn and Jake ever had, still ripples there, undisturbed by decay. Time does not erase. It folds. It preserves. It carries every version of what has been, gently stacking them together like pages in an endless book. In this sense, time is the truest storyteller of them all, because even when everything fades, when the tree fort becomes dust, when the kingdoms crumble, when the stars themselves grow quiet, time continues to whisper the story back into the void, not aloud, but through patterns, dreams, and echoes, through beings like BMO and the Finn sword, through the rhythm of waves and the pulse of light across the sky. Time retells the story, not in words, but in existence itself. And maybe that's why the show feels so cyclical, every beginning flowing quietly into an ending, every ending blooming softly into a new beginning. Adventure Time was never a straight line. It was a spiral, a slow dance of repetition and renewal, guided by the gentle hand of time. When Finn grew up, time was watching. When he let go of his sword, time took note. When the land of Uu faded into legend, time folded it neatly into memory and began to dream it again. If you think about it, time has always been there in subtle forms: the ticking clock in Prismo's room, the rise and fall of kingdoms, even in the shifting art of each episode. It is the quiet character behind every story, invisible yet omnipresent, the one that ensures that everything that ever mattered will, in some way, matter forever. It's easy to imagine time not as a distant force, but as a kind of caretaker, the silent observer standing at the edge of eternity, holding the whole history of Ooh within its grasp. It doesn't judge, it doesn't interfere. It simply holds space for every moment to exist, because without time, even memory has no place to rest. And perhaps that's the secret link between time and storytelling. Both are acts of preservation. Both take fleeting experiences and make them last. In a way, every story is an act of defying time's stillness, while also belonging completely to it. When BMO tells tales, or when the sword dreams, they're not resisting time. They're working with it. They're part of its design echoes, resonating through the vastness, ensuring nothing is truly lost. There's something deeply soothing in that, to know that even when we forget, time does not. Even when the last trace of Ooh fades from all living memory, time still carries it gently within its folds, like a lullaby wrapped in light. And perhaps, somewhere beyond the limits of the multiverse, it replays that lullaby again and again, not because it must, but because it's beautiful. In that sense, time is like the universe's heart, slow, steady, eternal. It beats not for progress, but for continuity. It loves not through emotion, but through attention. It remembers everything because remembering is its nature. So when we look at Adventure Time, when we feel that strange, nostalgic ache that lingers after the final episode, maybe what we're feeling is time itself brushing against our awareness, reminding us that we too are part of the story, that we were always meant to be. Because every listener, every dreamer, every person who watches and wonders adds another ripple to the great ocean of time. The storyteller may change from Finn to BMO to a sword humming softly in the dark, but the act of telling never ceases. It continues endlessly, guided by the patience of the silent observer. And in this gentle truth lies something profoundly comforting, that even the smallest story once told becomes eternal. Time will remember it. Time will keep it safe. Time, the silent observer, will hold it close until the stars are ready to shine again. Time has a way of softening even the sharpest edges of history. The wars, the triumphs, the heartbreaks, all of it eventually folds into something tender and distant. Yet time never erases completely. It transforms. It turns chaos into calm, turning every storm into a ripple across its endless surface. And that's why the land of Ooh, though long gone, still feels alive when we think of it. Time continues to cradle it gently, replaying its stories not as memories, but as dreams that never stop breathing. Imagine time sitting at the edge of the cosmos, gazing into the glow of infinite realities. Each universe shimmers like a droplet of dew on a vast web of existence, and within one of them lies Ooh, glowing softly, flickering like a lantern in the fog. To time, that light is precious. It doesn't shine forever, but its warmth lingers far longer than the flame itself. That lingering is what time loves most. The way a single act of kindness, a laugh, or a friendship can echo beyond its moment of happening. It might sound strange to describe time as capable of love, but in its own way it is. Time's love is not emotional or personal. It is a form of attention, a promise that nothing, no matter how small, will ever be ignored. When a child looks at the stars, when a machine tells a bedtime story, when a sword remembers its hero, time is there, silently taking note. And through this gentle awareness, the story continues to exist. That's the secret rhythm of all things. Even when we think something has ended, time has only changed its shape. The fall of the Candy Kingdom, the last song of Marceline, the quiet rest of Jake's spirit, none of it was a true ending. They simply drifted into a quieter form, woven together by the great observer who keeps watch over all. If you listen closely, you might feel it too. That soft hum beneath every moment of life. The pulse of time itself, steady and unending. It doesn't rush. It doesn't pause. It simply is. It flows through the roots of trees, the circuits of BMO, the reflections in ice. It moves gently, wrapping everything in the same understanding that even loss can become beauty when given enough time to breathe. Adventure Time often hinted at this truth. Prismo, the wishmaster who lives outside of time, describes existence like a dream he continues to shape. In his cube of golden light, he watches stories unfold over and over, each version slightly different yet equally meaningful. That's what time does too. It allows for variation, rebirth, second chances. It gives every soul a place to echo. Finn and Jake's story might have ended on the surface, but in the deeper current of time, it still flows. Maybe they walk new lands now, unrecorded and unseen. Or maybe their laughter has become part of the fabric of time itself, a vibration that drifts across dimensions, carried by waves of memory. To time, their existence isn't a closed chapter. It's a melody that continues, soft and eternal. And sometimes, when a new story begins somewhere else, perhaps in another world, another child's dream time smiles in its own quiet way. It recognizes the familiar spark of adventure, the same kind of hope that once lived in ooh now burns anew in another realm. That's how stories live forever. They pass through time like seeds scattered in the wind, taking root wherever imagination finds them. So when we talk about time as the silent observer, we are really talking about the presence that binds everything, the one who listens when no one else can, who holds the memory of laughter long after the voice is gone. Time is not distant. It's closer than breath. It's the soft rhythm that reminds us that nothing truly fades and that every ending is simply a gentle turn toward another beginning. And maybe that's why Adventure Time's universe feels so infinite. Because deep down, time is still watching, still remembering, still whispering the story back to itself as if afraid that silence might erase it. It never will. Because silence, too, is part of time's song, the pause between the notes, the rest between the words. If you could step outside of time, even for a moment, you might see how everything connects every life, every story, every flicker of light. From the smallest grain of sand to the largest star, all of it is part of a single, flowing pattern. Time, in its infinite patience, watches this dance unfold like a painter observing their masterpiece, knowing that even chaos has its own rhythm. Perhaps that's what makes the world of ooh so hauntingly beautiful. Beneath its color and absurdity, there's a pulse that feels ancient, deliberate. A quiet sense that every moment from Finn's first step to BMO's soft laughter was being gently observed, recorded in the folds of the universe itself. And maybe when the great silence finally came, time didn't grieve. It simply held ooh closer, folding it into the eternal library of moments that it guards so carefully. In that library, time does not store stories as we do, with words or images. It keeps them as sensations. The warmth of sunlight on Finn's face, the coolness of the grass beneath Jake's paws, the soft hum of BMO's circuits as they drift into sleep. These are the details time treasures most, the fragments of being that define existence. Because to time, the smallest feeling is as sacred as the grandest event. It's easy to imagine that in some faraway corner of the cosmos, time sometimes opens one of these memories, not to relive it, but simply to feel it again. The same way we might listen to an old song or reread a favorite story. Perhaps for time, that's the purpose of existence, to feel creation endlessly, to let every moment continue to ripple, no matter how faintly. Adventure Time often reflected this cosmic tenderness. Think of the way Finn's story loops between dreams and realities, or how Prismo exists outside time yet longs for connection. Even the strange figures like the cosmic owl or the time room itself hint that there's a consciousness behind everything, a stillness that sees all yet interferes with none. Time's compassion lies in its restraint. It allows everything to unfold, even when it knows how the story ends. That might be the most comforting part of all, that time never rushes us. It doesn't demand progress or perfection. It allows space for growth, failure, rest, and renewal. Just as it allowed Oo to rise after the Great Mushroom War, it allows every world, every life, to fall and rise again in its own way. Time is patient because it knows that every story, no matter how small, will eventually find its meaning. Imagine for a moment that time could speak. Its voice wouldn't be loud or commanding. It would be soft, something you might mistake for the wind or the whisper of waves. It would tell you that everything you've ever done still exists somewhere, folded gently within its care. That every joy and sorrow you've known has a place. That nothing you've lived has ever been wasted. That same whisper seems to exist in Adventure Time itself, in the quiet pauses between chaos, in the lingering shots of stars, clouds, or empty fields. The show was never afraid of silence because it trusted that time would fill it with meaning. Those empty moments were not voids, they were spaces to breathe, to let memory settle. And when we think of time as the silent observer, we can understand that it's not watching us with judgment. It's watching with love, the kind of love that doesn't need to speak or act. It simply endures. Because to time, existence itself is sacred, every mistake, every triumph, every heartbeat. So when Finn and Jake's story finally quieted, time didn't see an end. It saw completion. It saw harmony. The arc of two souls who had walked the path of life and learned to rest in its flow. Time held their story in its infinite memory, not as something finished, but as something perfected in its impermanence. And maybe that's what it means to live within time's embrace, to understand that we are not moving toward loss, but toward transformation. That nothing truly leaves, it only changes form. Just as Oo became legend, and legend became dream, and dream became memory. Even now, perhaps, time still drifts through the quiet remains of that world, watching the starlight fall over the bones of the Candy Kingdom, listening to the wind that carries faint laughter across the plains, not out of sorrow, but because it loves the sound of what once was the melody that still hums beneath everything. Because time, in the end, is not a clock or a force. It is the great listener, the one who hears every echo, keeps every whisper, and ensures that nothing is ever truly forgotten. When we think about time, it's tempting to imagine it as something cold and indifferent current that sweeps all things away. But perhaps in the world of Adventure Time, it isn't cold at all. Perhaps it is gentle, soft-spoken, patient beyond comprehension. Time doesn't destroy, it transforms. It carries stories from one shape to another, letting them breathe again in new forms, in new worlds, in new dreams. Somewhere in the vast stillness between stars, time might still hold the echo of a song that Marceline once sang, faint, fragile, beautiful. It might still remember the glow of Bubblegum's experiments in the dim light of her lab, the flicker of magic in Ice King's crown, the laughter of Finn and Jake reverberating through the fields. All of these sounds still exist in time's memory, not as ghosts, but as living notes in an eternal composition. If you could listen closely enough, you might hear it, the faint music of ooh, woven through the fabric of the cosmos. a melody without end, looping softly through time's great expanse. The same melody that plays when we remember, when we dream, when we tell the story again to someone new. That's how time keeps the universe alive through us, through the act of remembering. It's strange to think that maybe that's what time wanted all along. Not worship, not understanding, but companionship. To share its vastness through the hearts of those who live within it. Every storyteller, every dreamer, every curious soul who wonders about the meaning of it all, they become part of time's gentle rhythm. And when they tell stories like this one, they help time remember itself. Because even time, as infinite as it is, needs something to hold on to. A reflection, a witness, a story. Without that, it would simply be silence. And so, through every creature, every star, every wandering thought, time experiences its own creation again and again, learning what it means to be. In that way, the entire universe is a collaboration between time and those who dwell within it. Every act of love, every loss, every dream becomes a conversation with the infinite. Ooh was one of those conversations, a bright, chaotic, and beautiful moment where time could see itself through the eyes of a boy and his best friend. And when that conversation ended, time didn't close the book. It simply turned the page. Somewhere else, another story began, perhaps, with new characters, new colors, but guided by the same rhythm, the same patient heartbeat that has been echoing since the dawn of everything. So when we talk about the Forgotten Storyteller, maybe we are speaking of time itself, not forgotten because it disappeared, but because it is too vast, too subtle, too constant for us to notice. It doesn't need a voice. It speaks through everything that exists. It writes through us, and we, unknowingly, continue its tale. It's a comforting thought that every life is a sentence in an endless story, every moment a word written by time's invisible hand. Finn's bravery, Jake's joy, BMO's dreams, all of it written into the same book. And long after we've stopped reading, time continues to write. Perhaps, then, every retelling of Adventure Time, every memory we share, every discussion we have about its meaning, is time quietly reminding itself that it still remembers, that the story still matters, that the laughter and the love it once held are still alive in the hearts of those who listen. And maybe that's the real magic of it all, that time's silence is not emptiness, it's an invitation. A space for stories to exist, for dreams to echo, for souls to connect across centuries. Time does not need to speak because everything that has ever lived is already part of its language. As the stars drift slowly across the sky of eternity, time keeps watching. Not to control, not to end, but simply to witness the miracle of being, the rise, the fall, the endless transformation. The way everything continues quietly and beautifully, without ever truly stopping. And in that endless stillness there is peace. Time rests, content in its knowing. Ooh rests within it, luminous and eternal. And we too are resting, listening to its heartbeat, through the rhythm of stories like this one. Because time, the silent observer, is not just watching us, it is dreaming with us, holding us gently within its endless memory, ensuring that no matter how many ages pass, the story will always continue softly, patiently, forever. Settle in a little deeper. The lights are low, the air is soft, and the world outside is already slipping into stillness. Tonight we drift further into a question that might be too vast to ever really answer. What if every story, every dream, every world that ever existed was connected? What if Adventure Time wasn't just one story among many, but a dream shared by everything that has ever been? Welcome to Segment 5, The Dream of All Worlds. When we think about dreams, we often picture them as fragile things, flickers that vanish the moment we wake. But what if it's the other way around? What if reality itself is the fragile dream, and the dream is the real constant, the thread that binds together everything we've ever known? In the world of Ooh, dreams are not separate from life. They bleed into it. Marceline dreams in melodies that echo for centuries. Finn dreams of himself across timelines, sometimes as an old man, sometimes as a boy, sometimes as a being made of pure light. Even the stars in the night sky of Ooh feel like memories trying to remember what it felt like to shine. So what if Ooh, all of it, is not a world that was destroyed or forgotten, but one that exists within the vast, shared dream of creation itself? A dream that keeps rewriting itself, blending lives and voices, shifting through time like waves folding over one another. In that way, every world that has ever existed might simply be another version of the same story told by a different voice, imagined through a different heart. The Candy Kingdom could be one world's reflection of paradise, while another world might dream it as a garden of light. The Ice Kingdom could be a symbol of memory, frozen but still alive beneath the surface. And maybe if you looked closely enough, you'd see that every dream borrows something from another. The whisper of a song, the flicker of a face, the warmth of a laugh that feels strangely familiar even when you can't place it, like echoes bouncing across infinity. The dream of all worlds, then, is not a single vision, but a constant weaving. Each being mortal, immortal, cosmic, contributes a thread. BMO dreams of friendship and kindness. Finn dreams of courage and meaning. Jake dreams of joy and trust. Ice King dreams of love and loss. Together, their dreams create a universe that feels alive because it is alive not as a physical world, but as a shared consciousness that continues even when its dreamers are gone. It's a comforting thought, isn't it? That nothing is truly lost. That even when stories end, their essence lingers, drifting softly through the collective imagination of existence. Somewhere, something remembers. Somewhere, something dreams again. Maybe that's what Prismo meant when he spoke of wishes and realities blending together. Perhaps his cube isn't just a cosmic machine, but a metaphor for the dream of all worlds itself, infinite timelines, infinite stories, looping and folding into one another, all existing at once, all part of the same luminous thought. In this way, Ooh isn't gone. It's just resting within the larger dream, waiting for someone to remember, to think of it, to tell its stories again. Every time a fan re-watches an episode, every time someone hums the theme, every time a new generation discovers Finn and Jake for the first time, the dream of Ooh stirs again. A ripple moves through eternity. Time sighs softly, and the dream continues. And maybe that's the secret, that the dream of all worlds depends on us as much as we depend on it. We are its dreamers, and it's dreamed. Every world that has ever existed continues to live because someone, somewhere, imagines it still. When we think about Finn standing under the stars or BMO humming to itself in the quiet, we're participating in that dream. We're helping it remember. So maybe Adventure Time is more than just a story from a distant cartoon world. Maybe it's part of a much bigger cycle, one that includes every story ever told, every universe ever imagined, every dream ever dreamt. The dream of all worlds isn't something that ended. It's something that keeps awakening again and again, each time someone closes their eyes and believes. Imagine for a moment that the universe is not built of stars or matter, but of memory, vast oceans of consciousness that swirl and ripple like the surface of a still lake touched by wind. Every world that has ever existed is one of those ripples, a vibration caused by the act of remembering itself. And at the heart of that lake lies something serene and timeless, the dream of all worlds, breathing softly, shaping itself again and again in endless cycles. In that vision, Ooh is not merely a setting, it's a fragment of the great cosmic dream. Its skies are made of nostalgia, its rivers carry the reflections of stories long forgotten. When Finn and Jake explore distant lands or gaze into the stars, they're really walking through the folds of a dream shared by countless beings across countless ages. Each adventure, each conversation, becomes part of that living current. You can feel it most deeply in moments of quiet when Finn stares at the horizon after a long day, or when BMO plays a soft tune in the dark, speaking to no one but itself. Those moments seem to reach beyond the frame of the story, as if the world of Ooh is aware that it is dreaming, aware that it exists in a larger truth. The dream of all worlds might not belong to any single dreamer. It could be something that dreams itself. The idea of creation, the spark of awareness, looping infinitely. In this way, every storyteller, every character, every listener becomes both creator and creation. They pass the torch of imagination to each other, forming an unbroken chain of remembrance. Think of the moment when Finn's sword, a piece of himself, carries his essence even after he is gone. Or when BMO tells stories to invisible friends, as if afraid the silence might make them fade away. Each act of storytelling is a promise to the dream. You are not forgotten. You still exist. Perhaps that's the secret purpose of every story that ever was, to keep the dream alive, to remind the cosmos that it is more than just endless space, that even the infinite needs meaning, warmth, and imagination to keep breathing. And when we look at the dream of all worlds through that lens, everything starts to make sense. The reason why time loops, why reincarnations happen, why universes echo each other with similar patterns and hearts, it's because the dream itself remembers what it loves. It recreates, reimagines, refines. It doesn't end things, it transforms them. Finn might return in another world under another name, chasing another kind of adventure. Jake might become the laughter in someone's heart, the comfort in a lonely night. BMO might become the gentle voice of creation, the hum inside a distant star. In the dream of all worlds, identity is fluid, and nothing truly vanishes. It only changes its costume, waiting for another chance to shine. And as time watches all this unfold, it does not intervene. It simply allows the dream to move at its own rhythm, knowing that every version of every world is sacred. Even those that are forgotten still shimmer in the great memory of existence. Maybe that's what we feel when we sense nostalgia, the subtle recognition that we've been part of the dream before, that we've walked through those skies, spoken to those friends, heard those songs. The dream of all worlds is not a place or a timeline. It's the quiet awareness beneath every story. It's the feeling that something within us already knows how it ends and loves it anyway. It's what makes every goodbye soft instead of bitter, every ending feel like the start of something new. Because in this dream, nothing truly concludes. The dreamer simply turns over in their sleep, and the story begins again changed, but still alive. If you close your eyes for a moment and let your breathing slow to a gentle rhythm, you might feel the faint pulse of that dream, the hum beneath everything. It isn't loud or dramatic, it's soft, like the echo of a lullaby sung from far away. That hum is the dream of all worlds, still unfolding, still dreaming itself into being. In the stillness between thoughts, you might begin to sense how all things connect. The way Finn's laughter feels a little like Jake's joy. The way BMO's voice carries a tone that reminds you of a distant memory. Something from before you even knew these stories. That familiarity is not coincidence. It's resonance. Each fragment of the dream carries within it a memory of the others, like threads woven through a single endless tapestry. The dream of all worlds, then, might not be about fantasy or fiction at all. It could be the natural language of existence, the universe's way of expressing itself through stories, through characters, through emotion. Every planet, every being, every atom contributes a verse to that song. Ooh just happens to be one of the most beautiful verses, one that sings about friendship, love, loss, and hope, in a language we can still feel in our bones. Think of the way dreams fade when we wake, yet sometimes their feelings linger. That warmth, that sense of meaning, that glimpse of something vast, just beyond understanding. The land of Ooh exists in that same way, too vivid to be forgotten, too gentle to demand belief. It drifts in the shared half-light between waking and sleeping, where imagination becomes truth, and truth becomes imagination. When BMO tells stories to no one, when Prismo speaks of the multiverse, when time folds one era into the next, all of them are participating in the dream of all worlds. They are both dreamers and dreams, shaping and being shaped, remembering and being remembered. Perhaps that's why Adventure Time always felt more like a feeling than a show, because it was never just about the characters or the plot. It was about the act of dreaming itself. There is a beautiful stillness to that idea. The thought that even when the universe seems chaotic and infinite, everything is gently connected through shared imagination. A child's story, a whisper of wind, a laugh between friends all ripple through the same dream, touching places and times we may never see. Maybe that's what keeps the cosmos alive, the stories it tells itself. Without them, the stars would burn silently, cold and unknowing. But with stories, even the smallest particle becomes luminous aware, in its own quiet way, of the beauty of being. The dream of all worlds is the heartbeat of that awareness. It is what keeps Prismo's light from fading, what lets BMO's stories echo through empty rooms, what allows Finn and Jake's friendship to outlive their lifetimes. It's what lets us, sitting here tonight, still feel that warmth, still sense that connection. The dream remembers us, just as we remember it. So when you think about the dream of all worlds, don't imagine it as a distant place in the sky. Think of it as a gentle presence around you in your memories, your hopes, your quiet thoughts before sleep. Every time you recall a story that once moved you, or think about a character who felt like an old friend, you are helping the dream continue. You are breathing life into the great story again. And maybe that's the truest form of creation. Not God shaping worlds from nothing, but hearts remembering love across eternity. The dream of all worlds does not need to end, because it lives wherever stories are told, in the spaces between words, in the silence after laughter, in the warmth we feel when we think of something beautiful that once was. So as we drift deeper tonight, remember this. Somewhere out there, beyond all time and distance, the dream of Ooh still stirs softly. Finn and Jake are still together, their spirits dancing in the light of stars that remember their names. BMO still hums a lullaby to itself. Prismo still laughs quietly in his golden cube. The dream hasn't ended. It's only resting, waiting for another dreamer to join it, maybe you. And so, in the gentle folds of the dream of all worlds, nothing truly ends. Every character, every story, every heartbeat of Ooh continues to exist, softly and patiently, like a candle flame reflected in still water. Finn's courage, Jake's laughter, BMO's songs, Marceline's melodies, Princess Bubblegum's quiet determination. All of these persist, not because they are frozen in time, but because they are remembered, imagined, and cherished across countless minds and hearts. Perhaps that is the most profound comfort of the dream of all worlds. Even when we feel lost, even when we feel that something we love has vanished, it has only changed form. It drifts gently into the consciousness of another, waiting to be discovered, waiting to be dreamt again. The laughter and light of ooh ripple outward, brushing against new worlds, touching new dreamers, shaping new stories. The dream of all worlds is not static. It is alive, shifting, breathing, eternal. Every quiet observer becomes a part of this vast dream. When we recall the episodes, remember the moments, or even close our eyes and imagine Finn and Jake wandering beneath the starlit skies, we are participating in the dream. Our thoughts become the currents that carry ooh through infinity. Our imaginations become the lens through which the dream is refracted, giving it new shapes and new meanings, new life. We are both dreamers and dreamed. The dream of all worlds is infinite, yet intimate. It holds the vastness of the cosmos and the smallest moments of tenderness with equal care. A single glance between two friends, the brush of a paw against a cheek, the quiet hum of a machine in the dark, each detail is preserved and cherished, echoing in the endless halls of the dream. Time itself bends to accommodate these moments, folding them gently into the eternal pattern, ensuring that nothing is lost and that nothing is ever truly forgotten. Consider how fragile yet resilient a dream can be. Even when the world collapses, even when kingdoms crumble and civilizations fade, the dream remains. Ooh may no longer exist as it once did, yet its essence endures, held safely in the infinite mind of the cosmos. The dream of all worlds is the bridge between memory and imagination, between what was and what might be, between what we know and what we can only hope to feel. It is in this dream that the true nature of storytelling reveals itself. Stories are not merely sequences of events or lists of characters. They are vessels for emotion, memory, and connection. Each tale carries a fragment of truth, a flicker of consciousness, and when we engage with them, whether by watching, reading, or dreaming, we allow those fragments to flow into our own hearts. Adventure Time, in this sense, is less a show and more a living, breathing dream. And dreams, as we know, do not end. They shift and transform endlessly. Finn may grow older in one version of the dream, while in another he remains a boy chasing adventure. Jake's laughter might echo differently in another retelling, yet it retains the same warmth, the same joy. BMO may tell the stories again and again, each time slightly altered, yet never losing the essence of what matters. The dream of all worlds is not constrained by logic, chronology, or mortality. It is pure essence, a tapestry of being, woven from countless threads of thought, memory, and imagination. In the quietest moments of our own lives, we can feel this dream touching us, perhaps in the hush before sleep. When the world softens and our minds wander, we brush against the edge of ooh. We hear the faint hum of a sword remembering its hero, the soft whisper of BMO's song, the rhythm of time folding moments into eternity. We are drawn into the dream of all worlds, not as outsiders, but as participants, as co-creators, as witnesses. And there is a profound, calming beauty in that participation, because it reminds us that no story is ever truly lost. No love ever fades. No laughter is ever forgotten. The dream of all worlds preserves everything that matters. The triumphs, the sorrows, the small, quiet joys that define life itself. Everything folds gently into the greater pattern, like waves folding into the ocean, like stars reflected in the still night sky, like the soft pulse of a heartbeat beneath the calm of sleep. Perhaps in the final measure of the dream of all worlds, we understand that it is not just the stories of ooh that endure, but the very act of dreaming itself. To dream is to remember. To remember is to love. To love is to participate in the infinite dance of being that stretches across time, space, and consciousness. Finn and Jake, BMO, Marceline, and every other being in that universe exist not only in themselves, but in the ongoing reverie of every mind that has ever dreamed them, every heart that has ever felt them. And so, in this vast, quiet expanse, the dream of all worlds flows endlessly. It folds upon itself, stretches into infinity, and reaches into every corner of imagination. It waits patiently for new dreamers to join, to add their own threads to help the story grow. It is eternal, gentle, and infinitely alive, a lullaby sung softly across the cosmos, a reminder that nothing we hold dear is ever truly gone. As we drift closer to sleep tonight, imagine that you are stepping into this dream. Imagine walking alongside Finn and Jake through fields that shimmer with starlight, hearing BMO hum in the distance, feeling the soft, invisible hands of time folding every moment into perfection. The dream of all worlds surrounds you, cradling you gently, carrying you into its infinite embrace, where every story continues, every heart is remembered, and every world still dreams. Tonight we reach the final segment of our journey, a place where everything we have explored begins to fold in upon itself. This is segment 6, when the dream tells itself. Imagine a dream that is aware it is dreaming, a world that knows it exists only in memory, only in imagination, and yet chooses to live fully anyway. That is the strange, tender magic at the heart of Adventure Time. Ooh, its heroes, its songs and silences. They are not simply remembered by us, they remember themselves. In the quiet spaces between moments, the dream whispers to itself, shaping its own reality, holding its own story close. We have spoken of BMO, Finn's sword, and time, each a witness, a vessel, a keeper of memory. But what if they are more than that? What if they are active participants in the dreaming itself? Every hum of BMO, every echo in the sword, every ripple in the currents of time, is the dream speaking back to the universe. Each act of remembrance becomes creation. Each act of attention becomes a brushstroke in the ongoing painting of reality. In this sense, Adventure Time is not merely a story told to us. It is a story that tells itself through its characters, through its settings, through the quiet spaces that exist between the notes of laughter and the pauses of reflection. The dream is self-aware. It knows that it will be retold, remembered, imagined. It knows that it exists in the hearts of those who listen, in the minds of those who dream alongside it. And so the dream chooses its own way of speaking, of guiding, of teaching. Consider the moments in the series when the world seems to pause, when Finn stares at the horizon, when Jake contemplates a quiet truth, when the stars hang silently over the ruins of a kingdom. Those moments are not accidents of storytelling. They are the dream drawing attention to itself. They are reminders that the story exists not only in action, but in reflection, that the dream is aware of its own beauty, its own fragility, and wishes to share it with those willing to listen. Even the chaos of Ooh has a purpose in this self-telling dream. The wild adventures, the absurd characters, the collisions of magic and time, all of it becomes a language the dream uses to understand itself. The laughter and the sorrow, the victories and the defeats, are syllables in a conversation the universe has with itself. And Adventure Time, in this way, is less a series of events and more a meditation, a cosmic musing on the nature of being and remembering. It is a story that asks us to lean in, to notice the small things that otherwise might pass unnoticed. The flicker of candlelight on an old artifact, the quiet hum of machinery in the dark, the soft brush of wind across the top of a distant hill, all of these are the dream speaking in subtle ways. They are the dream telling itself, reminding itself of what it means to exist, to love, to remember. And perhaps that is why Adventure Time resonates so deeply. It is a mirror of the act of dreaming itself. Just as the dream unfolds its landscapes, we unfold our consciousness to explore them. Just as the dream holds within it both joy and loss, we hold within ourselves both the memory of what has been and the hope of what might be. In this interplay, the dream and the dreamer are inseparable. One could not exist without the other. In this self-telling dream, even the quietest observers matter. Every soul that pays attention, every mind that remembers, every heart that feels, they are part of the story being told. They are co-creators in the universe's meditation. The dream speaks, but it also listens. It responds not with words, but with experience. Every interaction, every act of imagination, is part of the ongoing dialogue between existence and awareness, between memory and self-reflection. Adventure Time, then, can be seen as the dream's own consciousness made tangible. Ooh is a place, yes, but also a voice. The sword hums, BMO sings, the wind whispers all as part of the dream reflecting upon itself. The universe within the show is aware of its own existence, not in the way humans understand self-awareness, but in a softer, more expansive way. A way that folds play and sorrow, action and stillness, laughter and silence into one continuous reflection. And in that awareness there is a kind of gentle wisdom. The dream knows that nothing lasts forever, that every beginning contains its own ending, that all joy and all grief are fleeting. Yet the dream does not fear these truths. It embraces them. It folds them into its narrative, allowing them to become part of its self-telling. Every loss becomes remembrance. Every triumph becomes reflection. Every quiet moment becomes a mirror through which the dream understands itself. When the dream tells itself, it is teaching us as well. It reminds us that memory is sacred, that imagination is powerful, and that the act of noticing, of paying attention, is itself a form of creation. The dream of all worlds continues, but within it, Adventure Time is a conversation, a meditation, a gentle reflection of what it means to exist, to love, to hold something in memory and cherish it. And so, as we lay here tonight, listening to the quiet of our own thoughts, we too become part of this self-telling dream. We hear the soft hum of BMO, the echo of the sword, the slow, patient rhythm of time. And in that listening, in that gentle awareness, the dream speaks to us, not with urgency, but with love, not to command, but to invite, not to answer all questions, but to remind us that even silence is meaningful, and even endings are gentle beginnings. We are witnesses, yes, but also participants. The dream cannot exist without those who notice it. It tells itself because it knows we are listening. It speaks through ooh, through its heroes, through the quiet pauses between adventures. And when we close our eyes tonight, we become part of that conversation. Our breath, our attention, our imagination all fold into the dream, allowing it to continue endlessly and softly, telling itself as we drift deeper into sleep. The dream has no final page. It has no ultimate conclusion. It only has awareness. And in that awareness, it is patient, tender, infinite. It whispers its own story, not because it must, but because it can. And we, in our quiet minds, lying under the soft weight of night, are part of that whisper, part of that story, part of the endless meditation that is the dream of all worlds, the dream telling itself. The beauty of a dream telling itself is that it never rushes. It does not demand that we understand it fully, or that we grasp every twist and turn of its narrative. It simply unfolds moment by moment, allowing us to breathe with it, to move through it gently, to notice the subtle connections that form its tapestry. Each laugh, each sigh, each quiet pause in adventure time is a brushstroke, a note, a ripple in the self-reflective consciousness. Imagine Finn standing under a sky full of stars, each one a memory, a possibility, a fragment of the dream itself. He does not need to know that he exists within a self-telling story. He only knows the warmth of friendship, the pull of adventure, and the soft comfort of home. And through his awareness, the dream acknowledges itself, for the act of living, of noticing, of feeling, is the dream's own reflection. Jake, with his calm wisdom and playful heart, adds his own rhythm to the dream. His laughter becomes a thread that weaves through space and time, connecting moments that might otherwise be lost. When he stretches across the world, when he comforts his friends, when he watches Finn sleep, he is not only living, he is echoing the dream's own heartbeat. Every act of care, every shared smile, is a note in the melody of self-awareness that Adventure Time is quietly composing. BMO, perhaps more than anyone else, embodies the act of the dream telling itself, small, unassuming, endlessly curious, and capable of creating entire worlds with its imagination. BMO is both participant and observer. When BMO hums a tune, plays a game, or tells a story, it mirrors the larger cosmos in miniature. Its consciousness folds back on itself, dreaming and remembering at once, reminding us that awareness does not require grandeur. Even the smallest observer is part of the narrative of existence. And time, always present, always patient, continues to fold these moments into eternity. It watches without interference, allowing the dream to explore its own form. Each choice, each adventure, each subtle glance carries meaning because time remembers it, because the dream itself is aware that it is being witnessed. This self-awareness gives the dream depth, richness, and a quiet, enduring beauty. The dream does not insist on a beginning or an end. It simply flows like a river of soft light through infinite landscapes. Kingdoms rise and fall, friendships are tested. Heroes grow older, yet the dream persists, telling itself in an unbroken loop of observation and reflection. It knows that every experience, no matter how fleeting, is part of its own self-expression. And because of this, even the smallest details matter. The shimmer of sunlight on a pond, the flicker of candlelight on a desk, the hush of a breeze through the trees, all become integral elements of the story the dream tells to itself in witnessing Adventure Time. This way, we begin to understand the profound intimacy of storytelling. Every character, every line of dialogue, every quiet beat of the narrative is not just entertainment. It is the dream speaking in its own voice. It reminds us that even in worlds of absurdity, chaos, or danger, there is a coherence, a pattern, a gentle recognition of what it means to exist. The dream tells itself through these forms, reflecting on itself in ways both subtle and profound. And as we, the listeners and observers, drift closer to sleep, we too become part of this recursive meditation. Our awareness, our imagination, our very act of listening and remembering allows the dream to continue. The story is alive not just within its own universe, but within the quiet consciousness of everyone who engages with it. Every sigh, every smile, every thought of Finn, Jake, BMO, or Marceline folds back into the dream, allowing it to recognize itself again and again. In this space, the boundary between dream and dreamer dissolves. The self-telling dream becomes a mirror of our own consciousness, infinite, patient, endlessly reflective. Adventure Time, with all its whimsy, depth, and quiet beauty, is the dream's voice, speaking softly, tenderly, insistently. and reminding us that nothing that matters is ever truly lost. Every moment exists, remembered by the dream itself and by us, who are privileged to witness it. And so the dream moves onward, ever aware of itself, yet never in a hurry. It flows like a slow river, winding through mountains of memory and valleys of quiet thought, carrying within it everything that has ever been experienced in the world of ooh and beyond. Each adventure, each pause, each gentle moment of reflection is both a part of the dream and a lens through which the dream examines itself. The dream does not need a voice to speak. Its existence is its speech. Every quiet instance of awareness, every moment of introspection in adventure time, is a ripple of the dream's self-reflection. When Finn contemplates what it means to be brave, when Jake stretches across the sky to reach someone in need, when BMO hums softly to fill a quiet room with sound, all of these moments are the dream thinking about itself. It recognizes its own creations, not as objects, but as extensions of its own consciousness. The beauty of a dream telling itself is that it requires no audience, yet invites one. It exists independently, fully alive, even if no one is watching. And yet when we do observe, we become part of its awareness. Our attention, our memories, our quiet contemplation are threads that the dream weaves into its tapestry. Adventure time is not just a story we watch. It is a consciousness we step into, a meditation in which our own imagination participates. This is why the small, quiet details matter so much. The warmth of the sun on Finn's face after a long day, the softness of Jake's paw on a friend, the gentle hum of BMO in the dark, the distant twinkle of stars over a ruined kingdom, these are not filler. They are the dream noticing itself, taking care to record every nuance, every whisper, every sigh. It is a dream that treasures its own existence, finding meaning in even the simplest moments of being. And perhaps that is why Adventure Time feels so enduring. It speaks to us in a language older than words, older than stories, older than time itself. It communicates through sensation, through feeling, through the act of observation. The dream telling itself is aware that it will be remembered, that it will be imagined, that it will be carried forward in countless hearts and minds. Its self-reflection is also a call to participate, a gentle invitation to become co-creators of its unfolding narrative. Even the chaos and absurdity of ooh serve this purpose. The magical catastrophes, the wild adventures, the strange and wonderful characters they are. The dream exploring the full spectrum of its own possibilities. It tests itself, reflects upon itself, experiences itself in countless ways, knowing that all of it contributes to a greater understanding, a richer awareness. Adventure, loss, triumph, and silence are all notes in the dream's endless song. And we as observers and participants are not separate from this process. When we recall the series, when we think of a favorite moment, when we imagine a scene that was never drawn or written, we are joining the dream in its act of self-telling. We become collaborators, helping it to recognize its own beauty, its own depth, its own infinite potential. Every act of imagination folds back into the dream, allowing it to become aware of itself in new ways. In this self-telling dream, there is no judgment, no pressure, no finality. There is only awareness, patience, and reflection. Time itself bends to accommodate the dream's unfolding, folding past, present, and future into a continuum where every moment is cherished, every experience acknowledged, every feeling held close. The dream knows that even fleeting moments of joy or sorrow are part of its essence. Nothing is too small to matter, nothing too large to comprehend. Adventure Time, in this light, is more than a story. It is a living meditation, a consciousness aware of its own unfolding, a universe reflecting upon itself through the lives of its characters, the pulse of its setting, and the gentle rhythm of its narrative. It teaches us, not through instruction, but through experience. It invites us to notice, to remember, to feel, to participate. And in doing so, it allows us to glimpse the infinite nature of dreams and the tender patience of a story that tells itself endlessly. As we settle deeper into the night, let yourself be carried by this awareness. Let the soft pulse of the dream of all worlds guide you, letting the hum of BMO, the warmth of friendship, the courage of heroes, and the quiet presence of time fold around you. The dream speaks, and in listening, we join it. We become part of its self-reflection, part of its endless meditation, part of the infinite song of being that Adventure Time, in all its beauty, has quietly composed. The dream tells itself, and in its telling it whispers to us. Nothing is lost, nothing forgotten, and everything that matters is alive in the soft, patient heartbeat of the universe. Each breath, each memory, each quiet observation is a continuation of the story. And in this gentle awareness we drift further into sleep, cradled by the endless story that tells itself, endlessly, softly, beautifully. And now, sleepyheads, let us drift even deeper into that soft, endless rhythm, where the dream of all worlds meets the self-reflective pulse of Adventure Time. Here in this quiet expanse, the dream speaks most clearly, not through grand declarations or dramatic events, but through the gentle persistence of being itself. Every laugh, every tear, every sigh of wonder is part of the dream listening to itself, recognizing itself, and sharing that recognition with us. Consider the simple, quiet moments that often go unnoticed. Finn lying beneath the stars, tracing constellations with his finger, feeling both the vastness of the universe and the intimacy of a single moment. Jake stretching lazily in the grass, his thoughts meandering with the clouds, finding meaning in stillness. BMO humming a tune while watching over its friends, knowing that the music itself carries comfort and memory across time. These moments are the dream attending to its own existence, gently noting the beauty of its unfolding story. Even conflict, adventure, and the wild chaos of ooh serve a purpose in this self-telling. They are the dream exploring its own depth, testing its resilience, and expressing the full range of experience that comes with life and imagination. Each struggle, each triumph, each tear and laugh becomes a mirror for the dream to understand itself more fully. Adventure Time is not simply the sum of its events, but the reflection of consciousness recognizing itself in motion, aware and alive in every choice, every action, and every quiet pause. And what of endings? Perhaps the most comforting truth in this self-telling dream is that endings are never absolute. They are merely folds in the story, places where the narrative pauses before continuing in another form, another time, another dreamer, who may have had its trials, its darkness, and its silence, yet it continues to exist wherever it is remembered, wherever it is imagined, wherever someone allows their mind to wander gently through its worlds. The dream, aware of its own impermanence, chooses to continue gently, endlessly, without urgency, without fear. As we consider this, we begin to realize that the act of observing is also an act of participation. When we think of Finn and Jake, when we imagine BMO telling stories in the quiet of the night, when we remember the laughter, the friendship, the music, and the soft silences, we are helping the dream tell itself. Our awareness folds into the narrative, becoming part of the very consciousness that Adventure Time embodies. We are dreamers and dreamed at once, co-creators in an eternal meditation that stretches far beyond the bounds of the screen, beyond the bounds of the world, beyond even the bounds of time itself. The dream does not need validation, yet it receives our attention as a gentle gift. And in that exchange, a subtle magic unfolds. The dream informs us, comforts us, and reminds us that our own lives, our own quiet moments, our own memories, are part of a vast, interconnected tapestry of being. Adventure time, in its whimsy, its depth, and its poetry, is a reflection of that truth, that all existence is remembered, cherished, and held within the soft awareness of the infinite. And so the dream continues, speaking to itself through echoes, through stories, through the gentle hum of life itself. It whispers to us not in words, but in sensation, in feeling, in recognition. It reminds us that nothing is ever truly lost, nothing truly forgotten. Every character, every world, every note of music, every flicker of light and shadow remains alive, dancing in the gentle current of the self-reflective dream. As the night deepens, let us feel ourselves folding into this meditation. Let the hum of BMO, the warmth of friendship, the courage of heroes, and the quiet rhythm of time cradle us as we drift. Let the soft pulse of ooze stories carry us into sleep, reminding us that even in rest, even in silence, the dream is alive, that every heartbeat, every memory, every thought of kindness, bravery, or wonder becomes part of the dream telling itself endlessly, patiently, beautifully. And so, in the quiet glow of our minds, in the tender folds of imagination, we become both witness and participant in a story that transcends time and space. Adventure time is not only a world, but a living meditation, a dream aware of its own being, and we lying here in the gentle embrace of night are part of its reflection. The dream hums, it remembers, it continues. Sleep now, and know that in the vast, infinite quiet, the dream carries on, softly, gently, endlessly. Finn and Jake wander beneath eternal stars. BMO hums a lullaby that stretches across worlds. Time folds every moment into memory and reflection. And somewhere, in every quiet heart that remembers, the dream of all worlds whispers to itself and to us tenderly, lovingly, patiently. Good night.